Yeah, so if you all remember, yesterday we learned about the CPU, we learned about the general computer architecture, we learned about the different parts of the CPU, the control unit, the memory and storage units, how they work, DRAM, SRAM, ALU, okay. And but if you remember, yesterday we had a small discussion about motherboards. So today we learn more about this because it first of all it sounds cool. Yes, motherboard. Okay, and next we'll have a discussion about softwares. These are the two things we'll discuss today. Okay, yesterday we started with hardware. If you remember, there are two parts, of course, hardware and software. So we started with hardware. We'll finish that with motherboard, which is something which is not can you can't call it purely hardware, and of course you can't call it purely software. It's somewhere the bridge between them somewhat because it has a firmware, and then we'll learn about software and the different types which are there, which we encounter in our daily lives. Okay, so what is exactly a motherboard? See, everyone, we all know how to recognize it. If any one of you have opened the your home PCs anytime for dusting and all, because we used to, and I used to do it, I had to do it. So motherboard, if you open the PC, you'll see a huge PCB, which looks really cool. Okay, and if you want, I can show. I'll first show it to you because there might be someone who might not have seen it. Okay, yeah, this is what somewhat a motherboard looks like. Okay, this is an Asus motherboard, but I'm sure you even if you open your laptop, you'll find it, but not exactly like this. This is mostly of a PC. Okay, so this is motherboard is basically the best way to identify it, that it is the largest PCB on a computer. It is the largest PCB on a computer, and it is also the main board. It's not the only board, but it's the main board. You'll understand what it is exactly, but let me just tell you the basics. And that is why it's also sometimes called the Mobu. Okay, nickname, a cool nickname, and it is considered as the backbone of the computer. Now, from this term only, you can understand somewhat what it does. What does a backbone do in our body? The backbone's task is that it connects the different this is the backbone is the design, is the structure in our body where every functioning part of our body, it just plugs into that. So similarly, motherboard is covered in, if you look at this picture, slots, there are slots, you can see chips which have been plugged in, and you can see structures which have been put in there. There are many electronic devices that have been plugged into it. So now if we stick to the exact technical definition of the motherboard, see, motherboard looks like, okay, so many components are in, but what exactly is the motherboard? So motherboard refers to the bare PCB, the PCB that lies underneath. See, these are the components which have been plugged onto the motherboard. See, this is the confusion that we have in the early days, that we think that this entire thing is motherboard. No, motherboard is the only the bare PCB. From if I tell you from a technical perspective, motherboard is the bare PCB on which all these items have been plugged in. I brought a picture to show for more clarity. Okay, this is somewhat like a bare PCB. If you are clear, you will see that, okay, there are holes on this, and there are lines, okay, which look beautiful. These lines are called traces. I'll tell you what these lines are. Don't worry. See, these holes are the places where resistors, transistors, and ICs, they are either plugged into, or sometimes they are, so most of the time they are soldered into. So this is what lies at the bottom of this picture, and this exactly is the motherboard. Motherboard exactly. What are these lines? These lines are made up of copper, okay, and these are to be exact, they are wires. You can understand them as conductors. They are the electrical conductors which are connecting the different parts. Just like in an electric circuit, we have wires, connecting wires. So similarly, in a motherboard, in a PCB, we have they function like wires, but they have beautiful shapes. So we'll understand them. But first, one question that can be come in your mind is that two questions are exactly there. First is that, of course, why are there pyramidal lines? And then the next If motherboard is just a bare PCB by the way is printed circuit boards, should I tell you? If someone doesn't know, okay, so it's a board in which the components and or the places for the components have been printed and the circuit has been made. So these are the wires of the circuit basically. The question that can come in our mind is that why is motherboard so important then? Because technically motherboard in itself is not doing anything. Okay, if it is just a platform, some of you might be thinking that if it is just a platform where everything just plugs into it, then how the hell is it so important? So this is something that we should understand. uh, it's true that the motherboard is in itself, it contains, the no actual processing power. It has the CPU and the GPU and the other components which do the actual work, but that doesn't make it so simple. Okay, don't just see it as a platform on which everything is just soldered, just stuck on. think of it like a think of it like a jigsaw puzzle which has to be designed very carefully so that everything fits into it. We'll try to understand it better from the manufacturer's perspective. Okay, we'll try to think from a manufacturer's perspective. So remember that thousands of components that go into a motherboard, they are some of the world's most fastest as well as the most delicate components. Okay, they're very delicate. The transistors, even the transistors are so small, and the ICs. If you work with ICs in the labs, you'll break so many ICs and you'll burn them. So you'll get to know how delicate they are. So now the point is that though assume that you are a motherboard manufacturer, so it's true that the components that will be fitting into, for example, there might be a register going like this. Okay, so it's not that you will be manufacturing all of these, but you can understand that you are responsible for their configuration. What I mean to say is, you when you're designing the motherboard, you are choosing which component will go where. Because if there, for example, if there are A, B, C, three companies which are making resistors, okay, same resistor 10 ohm, but their sizes can be different. Okay, and their sizes can also be different from the current and current and voltage perspective. Okay, depending on what current and voltage they can allow, the sizes can be different. Now if you want to put a 10 ohm resistor here, so you already, with you are when you are putting the holes there, so you have to know in detail that okay, what size of resistor can I allow there. Okay, so basically you have the responsibility on your own shoulders that this entire thing works in the right configuration. And you're not just responsible for choosing the components but also for the placement and configuration, and making sure that every one whole thing is there, that you have to make sure that every signal reaches where it needs on the time when it is needed. Okay, and then after it is processed, then for example, if a signal is going from here to here, and there might be some component here from which the signal is again going back here. So all these timings depend upon the manufacturing of the motherboard. For example, let me show you this by a simple example. For example, assume that there is a component here A, and there is a component B. So something is going from A and B. You see lines like traces like these on the motherboard. That's why I'm drawing them like that. Okay, now they're going to this to part C. So some information. See, by signal we mean electric current. And by electric current we basically mean the data flow. For example, some data has to be combined from A and B, and something has to be done from with that and C, and then it has to be passed on somewhere, maybe to D. Now these traces, basically they are carrying the data in the form of electrical signals. Now their length and their angles have to be calculated very carefully. Okay, if you make this trace a little bit longer, so the data from A can take a little bit more time to reach C than compared to B. They will not reach simultaneously if you do a slight mistake in designing this trace. Okay, and that will create a latency in the data processing, and that will again bring a latency in the data processing of D, then again in E, and that will, slight mistake will create a latency can create a latency in the entire process. Okay, or one more possibility is that it can cause not just latency, it can cause inaccuracy of data, because some data can be arriving late, or some data will not be arriving when it is needed. It can also cause the system to be unstable or crashing. What I'm just trying to tell is that, okay, see, the trace is such a small thing. You can see so many traces here in this picture. But you have to, they are not just drawn like, by a painter. They are calculations, they are elaborate calculations to confirm that the signals that they are taking have the minimum latency. Okay, and not just that, that is why they are zigzag. Okay, they are not there for beauty or aesthetic purposes. They have been made zigzag for that purpose. And there's one, actually this is just one factor. Latency is just one of the factors, but there's another factor which is, if you remember from your 11th class physics, you will remember that, okay, there's mutual induction. So mutual induction happens between whenever any current carrying conductors are near to each other. Now, if you can see how many current carrying conductors are there near to each other. So the mutual induction of the entire motherboard, though in quantity it is very small, but you have to remember that the electronic components themselves are very small, the currents are small, the components are small. So this mutual induction can have an effect, and it can imbalance the entire computer. So they also have to be designed in order to keep the mutual induction minimum and in a balanced manner. For example, the mutual induction should not be too much in one part and then too less and less in one part, so that it doesn't affect the data flow. So these are the reasons why the traces are zigzag. You know, they look beautiful, but they're not there for beauty. So this designing the traces is a very big challenge. Whenever you're designing any PCB, motherboard is a very big PCB. Even if you're designing a single PCB in electronics, if you are working on some project and you're designing a PCB, so putting those traces is a very heavy workload. And this explanation was just to give you an idea that, okay, motherboard looks simple, but it is basically which ensure it's like, what can I tell you? It's like the basic platform, the infrastructure. Okay, the infrastructure is the right word. It is the basic infrastructure on which the hardware is plugged in and it works with it. Okay, but there's a dialogue in Sherlock that, okay, I may be on the side of the angels, but don't do the mistake of assuming that I'm one of them. So basically, motherboard is also like Sherlock Holmes. So it may be on the side of the hardwares, but don't do the mistake of assuming that it is purely a hardware. There is also a firmware component. For those who are listening it for the first time, you can just understand it by assuming that it is a software component. Firmware is basically a software version which comes with the hardware, and it is there to facilitate the working of the hardware. Okay, so a firmware component is also comes with any motherboard. You all must have, if you have started your computers and pressed F8 anytime in your life, then you must have seen BIOS settings, basic input output settings. You know, still now again, if anyone used to play games and they had to encounter problems in old PCs, then they would have tried to change something with BIOS settings. If you haven't done, then you just next time you restart your computer. If anyone hasn't seen this, don't try to do much. Then next time you start your computer, just press F8. Okay, you enter the BIOS settings. So BIOS is just like a firmware that comes with the motherboard. Now, what is the job? Why does it comes with the motherboard? There are two reasons basically. First reason is, once again, think from the manufacturer's point of view. Firmware is something that you can update. Okay, we all get Android updates. Why? Because they cannot come and change your phone, but they can update if there is some issue which can be sorted by software. For example, when I bought my phone, that version of phone did not have electronic image stability. That in videos now, if you like, they are electronically stabilized, so even if you shake your hands a little bit, the video will come stable. But that function was not by the hardware part, because it's an expensive component. But they updated it from a software substitute, okay, by sending an Android update. Android, yeah, something Android update, or maybe the video camera update. So in this way, they can update and improvise some problems, not all problems. Of course, they cannot change the hardware, but the manufacturer can update and improvise some problems firmware, via the firmware. And the next use is that sometimes you can alter the settings. for your computer's optimal performance. So these are the things that you can change with BIOS. And this is, I mean, I was just explaining that what is the use of this firmware, okay? Why this firmware is helpful so much. So we basically alter the settings for the optimal functioning, and yeah. So now motherboard, what does it have? So we'll look at some hardware components on the motherboard. This was just overview. So it has sockets, you know, in which sockets means just like electrical sockets. So basically you can plug and play, and there are many components. For example, if you have a laptop and you try to upgrade your RAM, so you would have seen that, you know, there are extra expansion sockets for RAM. Okay, you can add an 8 GB of RAM DDR4, and it can improve your performance. Okay, the expansion slots. Okay, there are ports, there are soldering holes. So all these things are present on the motherboard. Now we'll look at ports in a bit detail, because this is, we are just trying to focus on things which you hear in daily life, but we don't have a technical idea of them. Okay, so what are ports? One port example everyone would be knowing is USB port. Okay, we have been using this since an eternity, so we have heard this name, but we'll also see why this port is so important and what are some other kinds of port. But what is the port? Let us first just try to understand its literal meaning. What is the literal meaning of a port? It's basically, if we just go from a layman's point of view, if we just go from an English point of view, port is what? It's a connection point located at the edge of a country or land, uh, which connects it to other countries or places through incoming and outgoing ships. Okay, so here you can understand the country as your computer, the other country as some other device, and incoming and outgoing ships are like information or data. So the port is the point which connects them. Okay, which helps this outside device, out external device, to plug into your system. Okay, इसको technically modular design भी बोलते हैं. Modular means, you know, you can just plug and play, and then you can remove it. You don't need to attach it, you don't need to solder it, you don't need to fix it. So this is very convenient. Okay, so that is what is facilitated by ports, and which allows us so many expansion possibilities. For example, now let us look at the technical definition a little bit. It is just a communication point between, this is between the computer and the peripherals. Any peripherals that you are going to connect. Peripherals, periphery is a, its literal meaning hota hai. Periphery's literal meaning is the outer region. So peripherals is anything that you are connecting from outside. Those and computer, they are connected through a communication point which is called a port. For example, what are these what can be these peripherals? Mouse, keyboard, printer, the pen tab that I'm using right now for writing this pen tab word, speakers. So these are all external peripherals. If you had observed in your school, they would have removed the they used to remove the speakers, so that in our computer labs we can't play music. So this means that peripherals are not compulsory, they can be attached and removed. Okay, so ports, what are ports technically? They are basically slots. They are slots on the motherboard. Okay, into which a cable of an external device, you know, it just plugs in. Okay, now broadly speaking, ports are of two types: serial ports and parallel ports. Now, what are serial and parallel ports? Universal serial bus, USB serial. Okay, again we'll go and we'll try to understand it by the literal meaning. what is serial and parallel? If you remember even a bit of physics, then you would remember that what happens in serial is the current flows through only one channel, and parallel means that current can flow through many channels simultaneously. Similarly, a serial port is a port which can transmit only a single stream of data at a time. Okay, but a parallel port is one which can transmit multiple data streams at a time simultaneously. Okay, now it's not a big deal to guess which one would be faster. Of course the parallel port will be faster. Okay, because so many people can move ahead at the same time, while the serial port is like the gully cricket ki gully. So it is of course slower. The transmission is slower because only one stream of data can move at one time. Okay, parallel port, some things which we connect to parallel ports are like printers are generally connected to parallel ports, scanners. Okay, इसलिए इसको printer port भी बोलते हैं. Many people call it the printer port because printer is one very common thing which is connected to it. Serial port में the old roller mouse, if you remember, if you have seen it, the roller mouses were connected to serial ports. Okay, serial ports most can have 9 pins or 25 pins configurations. Parallel ports mostly have, I think, if I'm not wrong, 25 pins only. Okay, and remember these two things you should remember a little bit, that parallel port is faster and serial port is slower. So next time if someone asks you what is serial port, okay, don't just think that it is some fancy name. The names are mostly given simple names so that anyone can understand. Okay, now let us see some ports which are available on the motherboard. Okay, most of these ports you must have seen. Okay, it's just a time to recall and reaffirm in your mind that okay, these are the ports which are present on the motherboard, and what is their purpose. For example, the serial port. Okay, you must have seen this when we connect many times of serial devices. Parallel port, this you see, if you can see, there are 25 pins. Okay, this is 9 pin serial port mostly, and this is a parallel port which has 25 pins. Printers are connected with this kind of port. This is a mouse and keyboard PS2 port. If you remember the old PCs, they had this kind of port where we used to plug, we used to go behind the CPUs, and we used to plug in a mouse and keyboards into this kind of ports. Okay, nowadays we have USB mouses. So we'll discuss why USB is so popular. Okay, but this is what we used earlier, 5-10 years ago. This was even now, if you get a home PC, they will most probably have a PS2 port, but we don't mostly use them. Okay, games port is for the gamer outs. Okay, VGA port is used if you connect yeah, in old PCs only. Nowadays in the monitor only they have put the CPU parts. Okay, so it has become a compact device, almost like a laptop. But in the earlier times, the monitor and the CPU, they were separate, and we used to connect the monitor via VGA port. Okay, okay. So video input and output. This is sometimes these kind of ports you'll also find in some TVs when you have to connect them to dish TV or something like that. The board, the box, set-top box. Okay, HDMI port, you will find it in your laptop if it is not very old. Okay, and you will also find them in high-end TVs, because these are used to connect the computer to some smart TVs that you get, a 40-inch TVs, because they can support higher resolution. So when you are going for high-end TVs, this means that you are going for higher resolution. If you're going for higher resolution, what does it mean? You have to send more data at the same time. So that cannot be done with a simple VGA port. So we need HDMI port. Okay, if you ever connected your laptop to your 40-inch TVs or smart TVs for gaming, then you would know that you would have used HDMI port most probably. Okay, then there are DVI, digital video interface ports, Ethernet. Okay, you will find them Ethernet cables in college, I mean, most colleges, of course, especially and also in Ramaya. So if you go there, you'll find a white cable which you just plug into your laptop, and you'll get a very good high-speed internet. Okay. So they are these lights are there to indicate, okay, if the connection is there or not, and they are used as LAN cables, and they provide very high-speed internet. Okay. Modem connections, of course, they are not as fast as this. See, I think the speed is written here. Hold a second. Yeah, 56 k per second, while here it is acha. Let's I think I told this yesterday. Let's see if you remember. 100 mbps. Do you see it is 100? It's very smartly it's written 100 m small b. It's actually 100 megabits per second. Okay. Now if we convert it to 100 into megabytes, then it will become 100 by 8, which will be 12.5 mega capital B megabytes per second. So we when first time when I when I stepped into my college and I heard that, okay, it has 100 mbps, I thought that, oh my god, so much speed. But it's actually in megabytes, it is 12.5 megabytes per second. Universal serial bus. Okay, this universal port. So yeah, if you can see here, there are three generations of USB pins which have come. USB 1.1, 1.1, 1.0, whatever you call it. So this is the one which we have seen. Okay, this if you see it, it basically looks like this. Okay, and this part is black. Okay, if I've drawn it blue, so it might confuse you. Hold a second. This part is black. But if you go to USB 2.0, you'll find that this part is blue. Okay, so this is the one major definition, means by which we can easily recognize. Also, the symbol is also different for USB 1.0. This is the symbol. In USB 2.0, I think there are two S below it, and USB 3.0 is a very small pin. It just looks like this. The Type C chargers that we have, okay, they are mostly USB 3.0. Yeah. So the biggest, one of there's one more one very good advantage of USB pins is that they're not just, of course, they're easy to plug in, but at the same time they can simultaneously charge the peripheral device that you have connected through a USB port. You must have observed that when you connect your mobile phones to your laptop for data, some transfer of data or photos, whatever you do, so you must have seen that your phone starts charging also. Okay, this is I'm hoping that this is at least the minimum that you must have observed. Okay, at the same this pen tab that I'm using right now, this has been connected to a USB port. There is no battery inside it. It is just getting power from my laptop. So this gives a lot of flexibility to the companies which are making those devices which connect to your computer through USB, because they don't have to worry about energy. Through the USB port, they can do communication, and at the same time they can get charge. So they don't have to carry a battery, or you don't have to charge them. So that is a huge cumbersome thing which is removed from the picture. That is why USB devices are so much in use. Okay, most of them, even earlier, you saw that earlier, you had mouse which we are working having on PS2 port, but now even those mouses come with USB ports. Okay, audio jacks तो सबने देखा ही होगा, especially those like music. Stereo line in line out, अगर किसी को confusion हो बता देता हूँ कि दो word में. Line in means, of course, you are taking audio input from somewhere, some device. For example, if you plug in a mic, so then you put that mic cable into the line in of your speaker, and yeah, and line out means you are taking output from there. For example, that speaker is going to some amplifier or something else, somewhere else where it is going to record. So then you take the cable out from the line out. So this is about fireware, IEC power connectors, where you would have seen it. If you would have, if any of you have iPhones, then you would have seen that the chargers sometimes, they have now not nowadays, but sometimes they have connectors like this to put in sockets. Okay, and IEC is actually a International Electrochemical Commission. It sets the standards for power conversion. If you have a laptop charger, for example, in my laptop, it is in two parts, and I've seen it in many laptops. So if you remove it from the middle part, okay, where it is detachable, there you'll find a connection like this, most probably. Okay, so this helps in the conversion of energy. There are power connectors, and then of course there are SATA. SATA, if anyone wants to know, I can tell you that it is Serial Advanced Technology Attachment. The full form, we don't need to go in detail, but just remember that it is a bus interface which is used to connect mass storage devices to the motherboard of the computer. Okay, FireWire, the wire which is on fire, of course not on fire, but the wire which is very fast, and it is used to transfer large amounts of data at very fast speeds. So if you need that kind of transmission sometimes, you can use FireWire. And it was a technology, if I'm not wrong, it was invented by Apple. Okay, they invented this technology, and it is, for example, if you are attaching a camcorder, um, like a live camera or camcorder, then actually there's so much of information that is coming from a camcorder, and that has to be displayed live. So that information has to be transmitted at a very high speed. So for that, we use firewires. These kind of cool technologies Apple only makes. Okay, now what is the next topic? Okay, this is, I think we have discussed almost most of the things about motherboard. Let me see if I missed something. Now we can discuss about software. There's a very nice term which Harsh uses a lot of time. I really like this term, computers poetry. Okay, that's why I'm writing it again. But yeah, so that is how sometimes I think we have referred it in the book. But technically speaking, software are just sets of programs, not just set of programs. Just came out just by mistake. They're sets of programs. Okay, and what? But then, what are programs? Why do we need a program, first of all? Why do we need to write programs? We don't write programs for humans. Why do we need to write programs for computers? See, we might feel that, okay, oh my god, the computer is so smart and great and awesome, but actually if you look at the root level, in reality the computers are just passive machines. Now they are becoming more and more active with the advent of artificial intelligence. Okay, that is a huge, it has huge prospects in the future. But till now, the computers that we're using, they're passive machines. By passive machines, we mean that they can only do what they are told to do and shown to do. Not just told to do. If you just tell them to do, they can't do it. You have to show them at least once, then they can just replicate it. It's more like a mechanical work. They're not really doing some intellectual work. They're not thinking. They're not designing on their own. Okay, they're passive machines. So we need to give them instructions for that, to tell them what to do, and those instructions are the program. They're basically sets of instructions to do any, actions, to do actions in ordered actions, you can call them. What should I do first, what should I do second? You can give to 10 jobs and tell them the order, so they can finish all the 10 jobs. Okay, so but it has to be in a language that the computer understands, or can understand at least. Okay, that is why the advent of programming languages and all. So basically you can assume, we can see software, like for example, this is a software. So it has been programmed, it has a program which knows that, okay, if Harsh comes, I should welcome him, I should offer him tea. If others comes, I should only give him water. Something like that. So there is an input, it has been programmed to do what to do with that, and then it does that operation and produces the output. That is what a software does basically. It does processing according to the programming. Hardware is, you can assume that hardware is like a sword, and software can be anywhere between Bajirao and Mr. Bean. Okay, so it depends on software how to use the sword. Okay, it can use it efficiently, if they have if these are good software and they can hang. That is why there are some softwares which have a lot of latency. There are websites which don't load. So softwares can decide, can manage the hardware, tell them instructions according to your instructions, of course, and how better the software is, that makes the hardware performance good, great, or worst. Okay, depends upon who is wielding the sword. Now, see the software, the advent of software, थोड़ी सी कहानी सुन लेते हैं. Um, if you remember the last class, yesterday's class, we saw about the first computers which were vacuum tubes. So basically, these were the first computer. They had no keyboards, no monitor, no software. Now, instructions were just programmed by some. There were series of switches which were placed on an arrangement, and through those switches, the instructions were given, and this caused a pattern of on and off electric currents to go into the entire system, which activated some other sets of electric switches, and this all worked with the help of this was called vacuum tubes. And do you know these computers how they showed the output? The output was shown by means of some series of lights. For example, there were four lights for output. Okay, and these lights, nowadays we see the output in the language which is good for us, but earlier times these computers were very rigid. They used to speak only in the language they liked. We had to translate them. It was our problem. Therefore, everyone could not use the computer. Only when they the bridge between low level and high level languages was gap measured, was filled, built, then computers came into the hands of everyone like they are now. Okay, so for example, there are four bulbs. Now, for example, you gave a question like 1 plus 3. Now the output is 4, so it will show the output like this: bulb will be off, this bulb will be on, this will be off, this will be off. So basically, it's a binary output 0, 1, 0, 0, which is the decimal equivalent of 4. Okay, so this is how they used, and I'm just giving an example of 4 bulbs. They were not 4 bulbs, they might be 100 bulbs. So they will give the output like that, and you have to figure out what it is saying. Okay, this was they worked purely on a binary basis that time. So you will see in some old technical movies, even in I think Captain America first part, you'll see some machines which have so many light bulbs. So this is what they were doing. Actually, they were the initial computers, and even you might get a chance to work on something like that if you have some, logic design labs. I don't know if it depends on which department you are, but if you have logic design labs, so you might work with mux and things of this kind, where you will see the output in forms of bulbs. Okay, so they will get a better idea. But this was just to give an idea. You'll do these kind of experiments. And one of the first things which was programmed was the weaving machine. You know, because earlier, as population was starting, weaving was a, the loom was a weaving loom was a machine which had to be used a lot. So I think there was two scientists named Joseph and Mary who tried to program this weaving machine. The initial attempt was made by them, and of course there were improvisations on them later to print a certain pattern, so for which a human was earlier needed behind the weaving machine. And this programming of the weaving machine, though it was quite simple, this was the initial spark, that one of the sparks that led to the industrial revolution, because a lot of people lost jobs when the weaving was mechanized. Weaving became fast, a lot of production started, the sales were started, and of course similar improvements came in other industries also. I'm just giving an example of weaving, but this is how the industrial revolution started, because we mechanized industries and the output became really fast. Now we look at some of the major types of software. Actually, why we need to look at the major types is because you will hear so many terms: freeware, shareware, operating system. So it sometimes it really becomes confusing. Okay, what is this? So many kind of software: open source, closed source, kya pata nahi. So major types mean, so let us see first, there are only two major types of software, and then there are other categories, of course. The two categories are application softwares. These are the broad categories in which you can put most softwares. And then there's system software. So application software and system software, and then there are subcategories in them. For example, in system soft, sometimes the people say that in system software, you have programming softwares, and then you have driver software. We'll learn about these, of course, but let's first see what are application software and system software in a bit more detail. Okay, sometimes many people consider them to be independent. Sometimes at many places you'll find that these are parts of system software, so this is not a very exact boundaries. Application software, these are basically the apps जो हम बार बार बोलते हैं ना, शॉर्ट एक्रोनिम, शॉर्ट टर्म बोलते हैं, एप्स एप्स यही होता है, एप्लीकेशन सॉफ्टवेयर ही एप्स होते हैं. So application softwares are, they are basically softwares which engage the user engaging softwares. Engage means not that engage means they are involved with the user, they are directly interacting with the user. And many very there of course most of the softwares that you see around you are application software, MS Excel, Photoshop, then very popular one, Tinder, Happen. Okay, so all these are application softwares. And then there comes system softwares. Okay, so what are system softwares? A very good example to understand this is the operating system. Okay, so what does it do? What does the system software do? They basically coordinate, or they basically they coordinate the working of the coordinate humans, working of the humans, the hardware, and the application softwares. How these three will work together with each other, humans, hardware, and application software, this is coordinated by system software. Basically, system software provides an infrastructure for this job. Okay, for example, when you first power up your computer, it is the system software that is initially loaded into the memory. The first thing that gets loaded into the memory is the system software, because that is the first software that has to be started. Basically, you can understand system software like the software की दुनिया का motherboard समझ सकते हो इसको. Software की दुनिया का motherboard है. Okay, so system softwares are generally not used by end users. You don't directly interact with them. Generally, not used by end users. Also, this is the reason why they are sometimes also called low level software. ये नेम जो है ना बहुत कंफ्यूजिंग हो सकता है कभी कभी. लो लेवल सॉफ्टवेयर सुन के लगता है कि अच्छा कोई लो लेवल का सॉफ्टवेयर है, some low quality, some simple software. No, it's called low level because it maintains a low level. It is not very conspicuous, it is not very external, and you don't directly interact with it. That is why it is called low level software, not because it is some low quality software or something like that. Okay, the best example, of course, the operating systems. As I told, for computers you have Windows, you have Mac OS, you have Linux. So these are the operating systems for computer. For phones, you have Android, very popular. Then you have iOS. Then you have Windows Phone OS. When it was launched, it crashed badly, but now it is again regaining. Okay. Then if you remember, so this is a basic idea of what are application software and what are system software. Now, if you remember, we had a discussion about system software subgroups, like for example, programming software. अब ये क्या होते हैं? What are programming softwares? Programming software. See, most of the terms, technical terms, you can have a general idea by the names only. Programming software. What are programming software? Software which help in programming. Okay, which help to write programs, which help to write programs, debug programs. compile programs, test programs. And what do these programs lead to? Once you're writing programs, basically you're making softwares. So basically programming software help in making application software, programming software help in making system softwares. Okay, this is, they provide an environment. They provide an environment to do them. This is why you must have heard this term IDE, Integrated Development Environment. Okay, even if you haven't heard this term, don't think that it's such a fancy term. Like you will find Java IDE. So basically, it is an environment in which you can write Java programs. You can test whether they are correct or not. You can test the output. Before putting a program or a software into an actual machine, it is simulated. It is tested for virtual inputs and outputs, so that we can test the various possibilities. So that environment that provides that facility is called IDE, Integrated Development Environment. It also helps you to write the code. If you're writing very large code, sometimes it does autocomplete. There are things which can write a part of the code without you actually writing it. So many things are there. We will work with IDE in the future classes, so you will understand them better. But what I'm telling is that basically programming softwares are basically translator softwares. Okay, translator software का मतलब क्या हुआ कि they help to translate programming language like C, C++, Java into machine language, the language which is understood by machines. Okay, we write the code in Java, but Java is not understood by machine. Machines understand machine language, which is 0 and 1, in the form of 0 and 1. Okay, so these translator programs do that job. Translators can be of three types. You must have heard these terms so many times, I guess. I'm just guessing. Compiler, interpreter, assembler. Now, what is a compiler interpreter? Ye confusion, it comes a lot of time. Okay, so I have one of my favorite analogies to explain this. I'll use that here. What does a compiler do? What does an interpreter do? See, for example, there is a room. There is a room where there are 8 people. Okay, he is a Japanese, he's a Chinese, he's an Indian, he's A, he's B, he's X, he's P, he's Q. I mean, to say they all speak different languages. Okay, and no one understands anyone else's language. Now, if they have to chat, I mean, if they have to talk, communicate, how will they do it? If this person speaks Japanese, then nobody can understand Japanese. If X speaks language X, nobody understands language X. How will they communicate? So this created a challenge for the computers for the programmers in the beginning, because every time depending on every platform, the language was changing. No language was suiting all the platforms. This problem was first solved by Java. Java was the first platform independent language which was brought. Okay, and it achieved its platform independence from the fact that it was both compiler and interpreter. Now I'll explain how it was using. There was a common language, okay, which none of them were understanding. Okay, अभी के लिए इसको नाम दे देते हैं OC. Okay, now what we can do is, whenever Japanese person speaks something, there is someone who converts this Japanese into the OC. Okay, and there is someone who convert this OC into the specific particular language for everyone. Okay, so there are headphones on everyone's ear. Okay, and this OC language is converted into P language, Q language, and it is supplied into everyone's headphones, so everyone can understand the Japanese that he's speaking. Okay, similarly, if someone speaks Chinese, Indian, or A, so it is first converted into OC, and then it is converted to a specific. And this also happens in reverse order. This can also happen in reverse order. This is the way Java achieved platform independence. Now anyone can speak any language. It will be first converted into OC by the software, and then it is converted into the person's language, whoever is trying to listen it via his headphones. ये जो job है, it's not a very technical explanation, but more or less this is how it works. Okay, ये जो काम होता है converting into the OC, this is done by the compiler, and from the OC converting into the interpreting. See, the word only explains itself. Interpreter, interpret करता है. So interpreting of the OC, depending upon the platform which is to use that software or the program, this is done by the interpreter. Okay, and this is how Java achieves platform independence. और ये OC जो बोल रहे हैं हम लोग, OC नाम इसलिए रखा है ताकि उसमें कंफ्यूजन ना हो. इसी को बोलते हैं ऑब्जेक्ट कोड. जो आप सोर्स कोड लिखते हो, सोर्स कोड मतलब जो कोड आप लिखते हो फॉर एग्जांपल पाइथन में, वो जो है ऑब्जेक्ट कोड में कन्वर्ट होता है. इट इज कन्वर्टेड इनटू द ऑब्जेक्ट कोड, and then it is transmitted to the devices, and then they get converted into the interpreter converts it into its own. And that is why, if you remember 10 years ago, if the first smartphone that came, they had all the games, they started with Java. And because Java was something that was being used, even still it is used across platforms, because a software that you made, it will run on different platforms and you don't have to change it every time according to the platform. So this is a property which made Java very, very, very popular, and that property is platform independence. I give this example just to help you understand the job of a compiler and an interpreter. We'll read them in more detail in future, but this was just an idea. And the third type of translator was of course assembler. Okay, so assembler is nothing but it translates the basic computer instructions into machine code. Basically assembly language to low level programming language. Sorry, I mean machine code. Okay, there are some examples of programming software. Programming software क्या example हो सकता है? जैसे जितने programming editors होते हैं, like we'll use VS Code editor in the future. Then if you use Sublime Text is a editor. These are beautiful editors which you'll use in future. Okay, so in they provide an environment to write the code, sometimes compile as well. Then IDE, I already told you, integrated development environment. Then debuggers. Then there are compilers. Online compilers bhi aajkal to aa gaye hain, so you can use online compilers. So all these are programming software, they help you in program. Now the fourth type which we saw there was driver software. Driver software. You must have seen this notification from your Windows. Sometimes if you plug a new device, if you have watched if you have bought a smart band or something, or any new kind of device, if you plug it for the first time, it shows like installing drivers. Sometimes it also fail to install drivers. Try again, something like that. So what are these drivers? देखा तो we all have seen that, but what is this driver? Driver है क्या? Okay. अगेन टेक्निकल टर्म से थोड़ा रिलेट कर, सॉरी लिटरल मीनिंग से थोड़ा रिलेट करते हैं. लिटरल मीनिंग ड्राइवर क्या है? विच ड्राइव्स अ मशीन. Okay, helps in controlling and achieving its purpose. Similarly, a driver is a piece of software which helps to operate and control devices and peripherals. Okay. For example, see what it does is basically it translates the commands of the operating system according to the taste of the hardware device. Okay, which is connected, and thus it helps them to better understand their duties, their functions, what is expected from them. Okay, many times you will see that even if the driver is not installed, the thing is working. For example, the pen tab that I'm using, it was working even when I didn't install the driver. But after I installed the driver, I got some added functionalities. I could change the pen buttons to make it a eraser because I needed that. Okay, and sometimes it won't hang because you have the driver. So these kind of things help, but it's not that driver is always compulsory. It's not that you can't work without the driver. Okay, and many a times the device comes with its own driver. For example, if you connect a mouse, USB mouse, so even if you connect it for the new first time, it has the drivers inside, and therefore it gets uploaded from there. Some examples of drivers are like printer drivers, wireless mouse driver, of course, pen tab driver. I've installed it, so I can tell about that. And there are drivers in almost everything. So that was we read about driver software. So we read about application software, we read about system software, we read about programming software, and we read about driver software. Application, system, programming, driver. Cut. Okay. Let me see if I have some picture for you. Okay, I forgot to show this picture. Okay, application software types. Not exactly types. You can just understand them like examples. Like there are word processing software like MS Word, WordPad, spreadsheet software like MS Excel. Okay, where you got a spreadsheet, and especially they are used in companies. Database softwares which help you to store there a lot of data and manage and operate whenever you need to extract data, change the central database. For example, in companies they have a central database. So for example, if they want to give a bonus, if they want to change some information about you, maybe your profile, if they change it at one place, the database, advantage is that if you change it at one place, it gets changed everywhere. Okay, for example, if you change your name on Google account, so everywhere you have logged in from your Google account, everywhere the name might change. So, and just it's not just an exact example, I'm just giving an idea that sometimes the center, they are not different copies of the data, but there's only one single copy, and when you change that copy, the every copy which actually reflects that initial copy itself, everywhere the data gets modified. The multimedia software, communication softwares, internet browsers, of course, we all know Google Chrome, email programs. So all these are kinds of application software, and they are examples. Okay, so this is kind of here we can understand the interaction. For example, user interacts directly with the application software, and then an application software is something that interacts with the operating software in the background, and the operating software helps all this part interact with the hardware. Okay, basically you are controlling the hardware but through this channel. Okay, and then there are some not so exact types, we can call them types of hardware, but yeah, there are some more things that okay we should discuss. I'm just discussing this because you might hear these terms somewhere and they sound very fancy. These are not kinds of software. Mostly they will, if you try to categorize them, you will either put them in application softwares or system softwares. But these are some terms which are quite popular, like freeware. What is freeware? नाम से ही पता चल रहा है, use for free. The softwares or the applications which are available for using for free are called freeware, like Google Chrome, like Insta, like Skype. They are completely available for free use. Therefore, they are freeware. Where comes from software. Shareware. Shareware क्या है? They are paid programs, but many a times you'll find that they are available for a trial period. For a trial period, you can get a trial, but for future, when you open Play Store now, many apps it's written in-app purchases. They are shareware basically. So you have to pay for them if you want some extra features or if you want to use them after your trial period ends. Okay, the very popular example is Netflix. We all want Netflix to become a freeware from a shareware, but it is a shareware as of now. Adobe Photoshop is an example. You can use it, but if you want some good functionalities, then you have to pay. MATLAB, if you haven't used it, it is a very important software. Mathematics Lab, it comes from there, and you will use it in your, most probably if you are in your college life, you will use it, you're going to use it. It's a very useful software. then open source software. What open source software? See, if you remember, we discussed a term called source code. Source code is the code that you write for a program. So the softwares whose source code is openly available for everyone and anyone. Okay, those are called open source softwares. Okay, everyone has access. Anyone can modify and share with everyone they want. Okay, there is no, you won't face a copyright suit if you do that. The best example for this is the Arduino IDE. You will use it in future. So the Arduino IDE, even you can, if you can make a library, you can make a new library with your own name. Okay, for example, Prerna is there. I can see her name on the desktop. So Prerna can make a library with her name, Prerna, and she can upload it on the internet. And from all over the world, if that library is really useful, people find it useful, they can just download it and they can use it. So you can, and that is why Arduino has grown. If it is seen that open source softwares grow very rapidly because it becomes a community job. People start pouring in ideas and they start developing the software, and it becomes better and better very fast. The only demerit is that the person who invented or made it, he doesn't get profits because he doesn't have legal rights. Now he has made it open source. That is why many companies they don't keep their software open source. So if the but Arduino IDE is an open source software. Closed source software, just opposite. Closed source software means those, so the source code is closed. I mean, it is not. It is an intellectual property of the company. You can't just modify it. And of course, there are many examples. For example, Netflix. It's an closed source software. You can't upload your own videos on Netflix. Yeah. Okay. Closed source software, ये तो वीडियो स्ट्रीमिंग हो गया. जैसे Java is a closed source software. Android is a closed source software. Anything MS Office, this is also closed source. This can also be a closed source software. अभी यहाँ पे काफी कचरा हो गया है. यूटिलिटी सॉफ्टवेयर को नीचे डिस्कस कर लेते हैं. So utility, again, get to the name. Utility किसको बोलते हैं? Something which is useful. Okay, something which is, it is just kind of a system software only. Subgroup कह सकते हैं इसको, subgroup of system software, and it manages the basically it manages the performance of your hardware and application software. So manages the performance of hardware plus your apps. Apps का apps हम लोग short form में cool में बोलते हैं, application software कह सकते हैं इसको. Utilities programs के बहुत अच्छे examples हैं. The very good examples are antivirus. Antivirus programs are utility softwares. Okay, then file compressors which we use, they are also utility softwares. Then for example, disk cleaners we have. Then disk cleaners like disk defragmenters. If you have done defragmentation of your local disks, then you know that, okay, disk defragmenters, disk cleaners are there. So these all are utility software. Okay, they help you to enhance the performance, or they help you to manage the performance of your hardware and sometimes the apps as well. Okay. So as we improved intellectually, as human use of computers evolved, so the need for all these different kinds of softwares was felt, and that is how they're developing. Okay, these are some terms which we just discussed, so that when you face them in future, you don't feel overwhelmed. You don't feel that, okay, something cool has come up which I don't know about. So now you know about all of them. So that wraps up our discussion for today. And yesterday we discussed about hardware. Today we discussed about software and the motherboards.